Welcome back, I'm Di, and today I am bringing you my September wrap-up. In September, I was able to read 4 novels and 5 mangas. So let's get on into what I thought of what I read in September. The first book I finished was Homicide in Hardcover. This is the first book in the Bibliophile Mystery series by Kate Carlisle. This book was one of August's selections for my book club, the first in a series, Cozy Mystery Book Club, or hashtag Book One Cozy's Club. I started this in August, but I wasn't able to finish it, so I did finish it in the very early part of September. This one follows a girl named Brooklyn. She is a professional book restorer. Brooklyn gets invited to her mentor's celebration for the start of his new restoration project, and while she is at this gala, he invites her down to his workroom to see the book, and when Brooklyn goes to meet him in his workroom, she finds him lying in a pool of his own blood. As her mentor lay dying in his workroom, he whispers to her with his last breath a pretty cryptic message. Brooklyn has no idea at that point what the message he's leaving her might be, but she gets hired to complete the restoration on the book in her mentor's stead. And as she's working on the restoration, she's trying to figure out what her mentor's message might have meant. She also finds a clue of sorts. As she continues doing the restoration, she uncovers more and more things that she probably shouldn't have been uncovering. She finds herself in a precarious situation or two, and the story goes from there. I did enjoy this book and will be continuing on with this series. I was very interested about the restoration parts of the book, and I'm curious to see what other types of books she will be restoring in future installments. The storyline also came with a super hateable character, and I'm not quite sure if she's going to be showing up more in the next installments. I kind of hope not, because she really got under my skin. Brooklyn also had a very interesting background that I hadn't read about in any other books. She grew up in a commune. Her mentor was also part of that commune that she grew up in, and her parents are still in the commune, but Brooklyn actually left the commune and is living independently. And I thought that was really interesting. She seemed really well adjusted to life outside of the commune. As I said before, I will definitely be continuing on with this series, and I gave this book 4 stars. The next book I read was Escape from Witchwood Hollow. This one is by Jordan Elizabeth Merrick, though I believe the author goes by only Jordan Elizabeth now. I was approached by a member of the Author Street team with the offer to obtain a copy of this ebook for free in exchange for my honest opinion. After reading the synopsis for the book, I thought that it would be right down my alley, so of course I agreed. This has no bearing on my opinion of the book at all. This story is told in 3 different time periods: 1670, 1850, and 2001. Now, I wasn't aware of that going into the story, and I usually have a hard time when stories skip around in different time periods or from different perspectives. I didn't seem to have too much of a problem with this book. The 3 different stories kind of all are separate and then eventually merge into each other. So one of the storylines follows a woman who has kind of taken shelter in this wooded area, and this is the storyline that's in 1670, and she has some magical ability, but you're not quite sure like what. And the story in 1850 follows a girl who comes to America to marry a local farm owner's son. The marriage has been arranged by her father, and she gets into town and he tells her to wait at this inn, and of course she doesn't want to wait there. She wants to see her dad because it's been a really long time. So she gets into town, she goes to the inn like her father asks, but of course doesn't want to stay. The innkeeper talks her into staying for one night, but she doesn't want to wait any longer than that, and she has no idea when her dad's going to be in town next. So she kind of relatively knows where his farm is, and she goes off on her own and gets lost in the forest. Then the third storyline that happens in 2001 follows Honoria, and she and her brother have just moved into this new town with their aunt and uncle. Honoria and her brother have just lost their parents in the attacks on 9/11, and Honoria is really having a hard time dealing with the grief. And so, starting at a new school, her brother seems to be adjusting really well, but Honoria is not doing well at all. So she happens to hear these two girls talking about the curse on Witchwood Hollow, and Honoria, of course, is curious. The legend goes that if you get caught in the woods, you're never going to come out. Hence the name of the book, Escape from Witchwood Hollow. It took me a bit to get into this book. I preferred the storyline that was occurring in 2001. I had more interest in what was going on then, and though I knew that the three storylines are probably going to connect to each other in some way, shape, or form, it took about half the book for it to do so. And so, getting to that part where everything started to click and the story started to move along took a bit for me. Once everything started clicking into place, I got really pulled into the book. I was picking it up more often, and then I get to the end, and though the ending was a feasible ending to me, considering what had transpired throughout the story, it was kind of a letdown. I didn't enjoy that ending at all, and it is really what is preventing me from giving this book a higher rating. So I did end up giving this 3 stars. After I wrote my review on Goodreads, another one of the author's street team had mentioned to me that the author actually had a different ending, and that the book may be getting re-released with that original ending. I don't know what that ending is, but I kind of am curious to see what the original ending was, and see if maybe on a reread this could get a higher rating for me. So yeah, I did enjoy this book, didn't enjoy the ending so much, and so yeah, 3 stars. This one is on Kindle Unlimited too, in case you might be interested in reading it and have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. It is there for free, just so that you know. So the next book I read was The Lost Symbol. This is the 3rd book in the Robert Langdon series by Dan Brown. I wanted to read this one to get caught up with the series, because the movie for Inferno is coming out and I need to read this before I read Inferno. And so I picked this one up on audiobook through my library. I actually listened to a majority of this on audiobook, but I kind of wish that I read it instead, because after listening to it I realized that there are all kinds of pictures and stuff in this book. Like, let me see it. Like that. And like that. So it kind of would have been nice to have the visual reference, but alas, I listened to like 90% of it on audio. So this one follows Robert Langdon, who is a symbologist and art history professor, I think. This one dealt more with the symbology part of what he specializes in regards to the Freemasons. And so at the beginning of this book, Robert gets called by his friend, who is a high-ranking Freemason, to come to Washington, D.C. and do a speech. And so he says, you know, I know this is last minute, but can you come and give a speech? And just use one of the ones that you did before. So Robert decides, okay, I'm going to help my friend out. And they're really good friends. So he gets on a plane and goes to Washington, and when he gets to the Capitol, in the rotunda, there is a severed hand in the middle. And immediately Robert knows that it's the hand of his friend, the one that called him to do the speech. But he doesn't know if his friend is alive, if his friend is dead. And his friend's hand now has all of these tattoos all over it. And so he gets caught up in the investigation into the severed hand of his friend. And the CIA gets involved. And the person that comes is kind of nasty. And I didn't like that character at all. But anyway, he gets caught up in the investigation. And the story kind of progresses from there. He uses his specialities to figure things out and try to get one step ahead of the person who did this to his friend. And this whole book, this is quite a chunker, takes place over the course of 24 hours or less. Even though this is only supposed to be one day, I did enjoy listening to this story. I didn't enjoy the way that the CIA person was portrayed. She was an Asian female, and she was, how do I say this? She was a capital B for a good portion of this book, and you could tell that she knew stuff, but she only wanted information from Robert Langdon. She didn't want to share what information she had. And you could tell that there were things that she knew that, if shared, could probably help him, you know, feed her what he knew. But no, she's just accusatory, and she's just blatantly rude. I didn't enjoy her character at all. And then being an Asian character, which I don't see very often, I didn't enjoy that at all. But when her character wasn't involved in the story was very interesting. I did enjoy learning about the Freemasons and him figuring out, you know, the symbols and all the little clues, and it was a very interesting adventure. I do have to give it that. I did end up giving this one 4 stars on Goodreads, but I think it's more like a 3.5. I am obviously going to continue to Inferno. But yeah, it was an enjoyable read, and I'm glad I read it. The last book I read in September was The Girl Who Fell Beneath Fairyland and Led the Revels There. This is the second book in the Fairyland series by Catherine M. Valenti. This book again follows September in an adventure in Fairyland, and she is 1 year older in this book than she was in the last one. Now, this book did not have the very difficult vocabulary words that I had an issue with in the first installment. So that was a big plus for me on this one. But it still took me a really long time to get through. And it's not that big of a book. Obviously, I just showed you The Lost Symbol, which I don't know what it is about these books. I don't know if it's just too much fantasy or the type of fantasy. I have to read these really slow, and I can't just sit and read chunks at a time. I can only read maybe a couple chapters back to back, and then I have to put it down. That being said, the storyline in this book was much more interesting to me. There were chapters in this installment that I really, really enjoyed, and I think the adventure that she had was more interesting to me in this one than in the first one. But yeah, it took me a really long time to read it, and as I got towards the end, it did start picking up. I was definitely captivated sooner in this story than I was in the previous book. So that only leaves me with hopes that as I continue in this series, that with each installment I'll get captivated sooner and sooner, and so hopefully by the last installment I'll be captivated from the get-go. And so I ended up giving this one 3.75 stars. Still a 4 on Goodreads. Just a little bit better than the first book, but I did enjoy this more than the last one. I did buddy read this with my good friend Raul over at Latin Lector, and so we are going to continue with the next one sometime, probably not until November, but we are definitely continuing. I'm still interested to see what other kinds of adventures September is going to have in the next books, and if she's going to continue aging up a year in every novel. So yeah, looking forward to it, but gonna take a break before the next one. And so those were all of the books that I read in September. I'm going to continue on with the manga in a second video because this one's getting kind of lengthy. So if you're interested in what manga I read in September, please keep a lookout for part 2 of my September wrap-up. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite book of September was, or if you've read any of these books. I hope you're all doing great, and until next time, take care and smile always.